Well, welcome back to Podcast at the Lighthouse. I'm here with the lovely Gretchen Mitchell, and
I'm here with the lovely Chris Mitchell.
that was very kind. So, in the last couple of episodes, we've unpacked who we are at the Lighthouse, what we do, and the Lighthouse Leadership Framework. And we're following on in this episode with that theme. And we're going to look at the base level, the foundational level of the Lighthouse model, which is about leading yourself.
Rolling out the red carpet for our VIPs.
For our VIPs, yep.
Strut down.
So we want to talk about value, identity, and purpose in this podcast.
Yeah.
And why it's important and why it's the foundation, basically for every human, I believe. But in my space, in relational leadership coaching, it's really important. And in your space as a psychologist, this is really important. And we want people to see from the two different angles that we bring how this can impact them in daily life in their three spheres: workplace, marriage and close relationships, and in family. So that's where we're headed today. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Buckle up. All right. So for people that have heard the episode before, we unpacked that to lead yourself and to grow your character, you need to know your value, your identity, and your purpose.
Yeah.
And what I'd love to share is that this idea, VIP, actually came from somewhere else first. It came from a bit of research into philosophy. And as I researched into philosophy, there were different writers with different models, but basically they said every question in the world could be simmered down into three, for some authors, four basic questions that humans need to answer. And so in our space, I call these the three core questions of the heart.
And why do we need to answer them? Or is that?
That's a really good question. And there's a part here that where I'm not sure that I really know the answer, but I do know this, that everybody wants to answer them.
It's like we need to know the answer.
Yeah, everybody needs to. Yeah, it's like everybody needs to know their sense of value or worth.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to know their identity, and everybody needs to know their purpose.
Yeah. And we see if we don't know our purpose, then we kind of get depression and end up hopeless. If we don't know our identity, we end up doing strange things. If we don't know our value, we try and find it in things that maybe aren't healthy for us.
That's right.
A quick summary, but yeah, okay. Because, I mean, it must be important for some reason.
Yeah. And I think for me, having come from particularly coaching, where we're looking at people who are working in teams, and when things don't work well in a team, what's happening inside the individuals? And there's this belief system inside the individual, and I call it the answers to these three core questions that they think are true, but they're actually not.
Okay, so we can answer the questions, but it might be false.
Yes. So maybe we share the questions, because this will help with where we're going. So I think, for me, the way I like to frame it is these are the three core questions of the heart. Firstly, am I important? And for me, this is the value question.
Yeah.
Am I important? What's my value? What's my worth?
Do I matter?
Do I matter? Yeah. And we'll come back to where this gets formed. The next one is like, who am I?
Right.
Which is our identity question.
Classic.
Yeah. And what am I here for?
Yeah.
Which is our purpose question.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, they seem simple, don't they? But I know.
Yeah. What I find really fascinating, though, is when I sit down with leaders, and it doesn't matter at what level they are, whether they, and what space they're in, whether they're in business or in education or like community helping institutions. If I said to them, can you just write down for me, answer these three core questions?
Yeah.
Everybody finds it really hard. But the thing that's really interesting is everybody has beliefs as to what they think the answers are. So I have this theory, and the more I research it, the more I research it, I realize that more people have been thinking about this prior to me. Of course,
Yes.
I'm not the first philosopher in the world. But the whole idea that, like, am I important? Where did I actually get that information from? What tells me whether I'm important? What confirms or affirms my identity?
Mm.
Why am I different to everybody else?
Mm.
Does that speak to what I'm meant to do here?
Right.
There are things that other people like to do that I don't like to do.
No,
And
or
I
I
can
can't
tell.
do. Yeah.
Like we've got, like I look at our kids, our 3 kids, like they're so similar and so different.
Yeah.
Like one of them loves to dance and like she's really good at it. The other ones, can they dance? Yes, but it's not the same.
No.
It's not the same. One of them loves music
Mm.
and the other ones really enjoy music, but it's not the same.
Not at all.
Yeah. And then the other one loves to play soccer. And the others can play, but they're nowhere near as good as he is. Yeah. And so like there's a purpose part, there's a what you've invested yourself into part.
Mm.
Yeah. There's the things
And a
that you
design
enjoy.
part.
Yeah.
Like the way that we're shaped.
It seems to be that they were made like that. Yeah.
Mm.
So back to my theory. Here's my theory.
Mm-hmm.
That from the minute that we get conceived, like
Mm-hmm.
mummy cell, daddy cell, boom, all of a sudden there's us. Okay. It's almost like somewhere inside those cells, as they grow into a person,
Mm-hmm.
these 3 questions seem to be being asked.
Mm-hmm.
Am I important? Who am I? Why am I here? Now, the reason I know that is
Mm-hmm.
because some of the people that I've had to coach and help, we've
Yep.
had to go back into scenarios in their life, the story around their conception,
Yeah.
their mother's pregnancy while they were inside their mother, and deal with issues that arose from that because they're impacting the people
Like if
in their
their parents
teamwork, in their
didn't
life.
want them,
That's a
or if their
real
parents were in great conflict or something while they were
yes,
being formed.
yes,
Wow.
yep.
Yeah.
And it's like the belief systems that the baby took on are still present
Even
inside
in
that
the adult.
adult. Yep. And they could be easily framed in these 3 core questions.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you were valued? And like, no.
No.
What's your identity? I have no idea. So what's your purpose? I'm really not sure, which is
And I think too, from the work I've done with people in this sort of space too, that those really early years are very important, because even if after that I figure out there's still that underlying, like I might know I'm valuable now, excuse me, but like some part of me still always feels like I'm not, unless I actually go into that and deal with that and process and release. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, we want to get to the part maybe in the next episode where you can explain some of that process to us of how do we deal when we have like agreements or belief systems that are unhelpful, answers, I like to call it, to these 3 core questions that are not helping us. Like, how do we actually process that?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about like our value, identity, and purpose. Do you kind of have a flow of developmentally how they work? I know that in the coaching space, there's a few things I've learned that are helpful.
Yeah, I probably don't have you work like that a bit better. Like you like the flow of that. I think I work more process, like what's come up today
Sure.
and I deal with that.
Okay, well, let me
Yeah.
share this developmental stuff because when the whole idea of VIP came, like we didn't know all of the history.
No.
And so it's funny, like as as it developed, we just became students of it.
Yeah.
Like we're not the experts.
Still a
We're still
student.
learning. We're still learning. But here's what we found, that the formation of our value or worth seems to be really intricately linked to our 0 to 4, 0 to 5 years of age. And what happens in that period of time is very significant in terms of whether we end up believing that we have value or worth.
Yep.
Now, our primary caregiver during that time is our mother.
Usually, yeah.
Usually, because she's the one feeding us primarily. She's the one changing our nappy. She's the one holding us. And the way that we build a connection with her really affirms and confirms whether we're worthwhile to be loved and cared for. And in terms of the developing brain, this information gets stored there. And it's kind of like, if this question's being asked, am I important? We kind of get obvious yeses and obvious nos from those experiences. And they get stored in, my guess is the emotional center of the brain. When I've worked with people, that's the part of the brain that we need to go and help change or reframe from a coaching point of view.
The other part of our brain hasn't developed yet. Yeah.
Yes, like the thinking part.
The memory.
Yeah.
Oh, well, another part as well. But yeah.
Beautiful. And so
And I think there's some ambivalence there too. Like we'll get the real positives and the real negatives, and also the confusing, where sometimes I felt
right.
I was valuable, and sometimes I did not feel I was valuable. And sometimes that's even worse than the negative one. The confusion of not really knowing where I stand. At least if it's positive or negative,
Yeah.
I'm certain.
Yeah. I can see you're speaking from
Yeah.
psychology
Yeah.
experience here.
Yeah.
Like, what do we do with that?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about next episode.
Next episode.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there anything you want to add about value and worth and its formation that could be helpful for our listeners?
I think if you realize as you're listening to this that your value, like the way you see yourself, is low or negative or not good, that it is possible to change it. And it is possible to get healing from the situations that led you to believe that and answer the question in that way. And the other thing I think that is helpful too, Chris, is to realize that beautiful quote that we've used a lot, that we're really good observers when we're young, but not always very good interpreters.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes things will happen and we'll interpret them in a negative light, and we'll think the reason that my mother didn't do this, or the reason my father was distant, or the reason my parents broke up, whatever, at that key time is because of me and because of some inadequacy in me or something that was wrong with me, or it's my fault. And all of those, as adults, when we look back at it, we realize that's not the truth. But as a child, we don't know. Part of our the way as we grow, we actually think the world revolves around us when we're very young, because it does. And we haven't yet realized that there's other things going on outside of that, and that we're not the most important person in all of the stories of the world. So,
well, I get the sense we're really just scratching on the surface here, because what you just shared is profound.
yeah.
There's
But it's really helpful to know that maybe my interpretation has been wrong all along, and I've always believed this thing and I've held onto it tightly, even guarded it, but it's not actually the truth. And a lot of the work I do with people is going back into past experiences and reevaluating them, looking at them again, reinterpreting what actually was going on. What's the truth? And now as an adult, I can often see it in a different light. And particularly when we have children, or when we're in a relationship of our own, or we can see things that we didn't know when we were children, and we can see it from another perspective. And that can help kind of like talk to our inner child and reassure and help shift the belief.
Yeah. So you just brought up inner child. So do we all have inner children? Like, how much of your work is this space of working with value?
I think there are parts of us at all different ages inside of us that need to be tended to, and need to be maybe comforted, maybe encouraged, maybe healed because of what we've been through.
Yeah. Wow, cool. And those experiences happened in that value time, like 0 to 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, they happen throughout our whole life.
Throughout? Okay,
yeah.
Cool. So one of the things I noticed when I researched identity formation is that it's funny, it sits really nicely next to value formation. Sort of like 5 to 12 seems to be these years in our life where our brain is taking in information to answer this question, who am I?
Yeah.
And what I found particularly interesting, because in the Western world at the moment, we have a lot of debate about relationships and married relationships. There's big changes in the way we see how those work. But in terms of our formation, the input of a mother and the input of a father seem to be incredibly significant for our identity formation.
Right.
And so between 5 and 12, especially, there's this transition from the mother being our primary caregiver and establishing our sense of value and worth. There's this point where there's this takeover, where what dad does and how dad treats us and how the father speaks to us and what he encourages us in and what he invests in us confirms and affirms our sense of value and worth, but then also confirms and affirms our identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really noticed that when that happened in our children. I remember being a bit sad at first, but then really glad, obviously.
Because they didn't want to hug from you anymore. They wanted,
they're
just hugging onto my leg like a koala.
Like, they don't care what I think anymore. It's like, where's dad? Which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is an adjustment. But I definitely remember it was.
But I guess we'll find out how well I did in the years to come as to whether they actually know who they are, right?
I think they do.
Yeah.
I think you did okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, in the coaching space, what's really interesting is this is the most difficult of the three questions.
Why is that?
I don't know. It's like it's not very concrete. When I work with
Yeah.
leaders and I ask them to say, who are you? In the way that we're brought up or in the language that we use in the Western world, we don't really have a way to explain this unless we dive into a much deeper framework, which tends to be much more spiritual.
Right.
And so I've got to this point where I realize knowing who we are is at the interface of our psychology and our spirituality. And so unless we actually have input from both of those, we're not going to find out who we are, because the source has to come from both of those areas. Like, it needs to be something that's happening in our soul space through our connection with our family, but it's also something that's happening in our belief space, the way that we see the world, our worldview, the way we frame that, how we see spirituality, what's important to us. Because identity is about not only who I am, but whose I am. And so we will always belong to our family, like assuming that nothing disastrous has happened and breakup.
Right.
But there'll always be that connection that you what do we say? You can choose your
Choose your
friends,
friends.
but you can't choose your family.
Yeah.
There'll always be some kind of connection, whether it's good or whether it's bad.
Right.
Yep. So there's this part where your identity is heavily informed by whose you are, as much as who you are, or who you belong to and where you belong to informs who you are. So we can see this when you look at people that end up moving into different clubs, different interests, into gangs.
Yep.
Like, their sense of belonging is around about who they belong to, whose they are. And that really informs our identity, which is incredibly interesting. That, like, identity is probably worth a whole series of episodes in itself.
Yeah.
It's really massive. So, Gretch, let's unpack this identity part a little bit, this core question of who am I?
Yeah.
So we've done some work with some people. The world needs a father, and they've got a whole lot of research in this area of identity. I really like their research, and they break it down into two parts: that we have a primary identity,
Right.
and a secondary identity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our primary identity is the identity that we have based on whose we are, who we belong to.
Right.
And so for many people in the world, this is the God part.
Yeah.
This faith part, this understanding, like what's your belief system in that space, is very integral to the formation of their identity.
It's a primary identity.
Yeah. And when you look at cultures that have this as a really strong part of their life and their formation, particularly in this age bracket, like, 5 to 12 with the input of the dad, this is incredibly formative, and it shapes a lot of their sense of who they are.
Yeah.
And cultures that are very strong at this, they don't have some of the identity issues that other cultures do have. And where there's struggles with confirming and affirming that identity, their primary identity, there's not that connection with what this God story is, or what this God investment, how it contributes to the formation of their identity, then there's a number of issues that start coming up. And as the psychologist, I'd probably jump to you to explain those. But from a developmental point of view, that's super fascinating. So what's your secondary identity? Well, this is the stuff that we usually do a lot of work in the coaching space.
Yep.
Because it's like, what am I good at? What are my gifts? What's my personality? What are my strengths? What are my tendencies? How do I respond? What are the things that you find easy but I find hard? That would be elements of your secondary identity. What are your passions? Maybe even some of your values. So in your secondary identity development, we have a lot more like maybe social input into that part. We have lots of influences from people, from friends, from social groups.
But it's also like kind of the design, the shape of how I am and how I'm different to other people.
That's right.
Helps inform that too.
Yeah, that's right.
And what about my family then? Because you talked about like culture and like the God element, however spirituality works in a culture. But what about my family? Because like some cultures have a greater, like, family's super important, and some cultures it's very isolated and it's not, like maybe one child, one parent, there's not an extended family. Which one of the identities does that speak into?
That's a really good question. And there's a part where, to be really honest, I'm not really sure. But the part that I do know is I believe it speaks into both.
Right.
I believe it speaks into both. So if the family has a really strong collective, can I call it a God consciousness?
Yep.
Like that narrative in their life is very important,
Yep.
and it's affirmed in the family place, then there's this cementing that happens. Now, and the dad, again, is incredibly significant in that part. Yeah, because if dad has a God concept that's part of his life,
Yeah.
no matter what that is,
Yeah.
it will tend to stick with the children much more.
Yeah. It's a much higher percentage,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And so then it will have the possibility of speaking more into their primary identity. Yeah.
But then I guess too, being in that culture and relationship with your extended family, you get to see what you're good at and what you're not as good at as
Yeah.
others. And so you learn about, but you also learn about what's important to the community and how, I guess, the gifts that you have can benefit and serve others.
Yeah.
Which is really the context of
Yeah.
why we have.
Or even what I want to get into. Like, as we share this, it reminds me of a story when I was a physical education teacher, and we'd have a family come to the cross-country championships. And there were all of these sisters and one brother that they were all runners. So I wonder in their mindset as young kids, they're like, I'm a runner. It was a confirmation of their identity. But the reason that they were runners was because their mum and dad both ran.
Right.
And so you've got that sociological influence of like, mum and dad love running, so it gets passed on to their kids. So we all do this together. And so this is who we are because this is what we do together.
And I think it's both. I think it's that, and it's also because there's often giftings that flow through families as well.
Yep.
So there's naturally a wiring, or they're naturally good at it potentially as well.
Well, some of them weren't that good at it.
Okay, but it was just what.
But they worked at it
Yeah.
because that's what the family
did.
did. And so they ended up being quite good. Like you could watch the siblings in their races. Like there was one girl who would always come first, and the other ones would always come places or like top 10 or whatever at these championships. But they always featured because they were running because they were practicing it. Yeah. And if you look at like, because I was a PE teacher, we used to look at athletes that came from families with elite athletes. Like elite athlete families tend to grow elite athletes.
Right.
Yeah, because like what's needed for them to grow that is really important. I think that's secondary identity.
Yeah.
So here's a couple of things that for me, I've got to the point where I realized about my identity. And I call it my identity is tech. So that's just an acronym.
Yeah.
So I found I'm a teacher.
Okay.
It's who I am.
Yes.
I will always be a teacher. It doesn't matter where you put me, I start teaching people. So I remember when I was at high school and we were doing dance to get ready for our school formal.
Okay.
And I couldn't help going around helping people. And then I became a phys ed teacher for 20 years. You know, like I'm always teaching people.
Helping with the formal dancing.
Keep doing it. Now, some people like my teaching and some people don't. Like, so
yeah,
my son doesn't necessarily enjoy my teaching.
All of the time.
But it's who I am. Like, I can't take teacher out of me. I always want to teach. The next part is I always want to equip.
Yeah.
It probably connects with teaching, but I always want to see people get better and better and better. I want to equip them to be able to do what they're doing next.
Yeah.
And this is what I get to do in the coaching space. And so being a relational intelligence coach and a culture and connection coach helps me equip people to do those things. And I equip them to solve the problems that they're facing in that area.
Yeah.
So I'm always an equipper. I'm always a connector. When I have spare time, like I might scroll Facebook for a little bit, but it will always remind me of somebody that I need to send a message to.
Yes.
And then I'm over on Messenger and I'm sending people a message. I'm like, hey, I heard you're unwell. How are you doing? Or then, you know, like we have some friends in Kenya that we like to stay in touch with. I have some friends in Canada that I like to stay in touch with. So I'm like, what's happening? How's it all going? And I'll just shoot them off a message. Or somebody in my sphere of friends that I haven't seen in a while. It's like, I haven't seen you in a while. Like, how are you doing? And so I just naturally connect.
We're always the last to leave.
We're always the last to leave, no matter where we are.
Yeah. Because you're very good at connecting. Yeah.
Yes.
Is there
connected too, I think.
Well, I am. I was just flying under the radar.
And then my last one is a healer. Like I always want to see people healed and whole. I can't get that out of me. I realize it's part of my identity.
Yeah.
So I'm always teaching, I'm always equipping, I'm always connecting, I'm always healing. I can't get away from that. Let's jump into the third question there on purpose. What am I here for? From about 12 years on, then we start to move into spaces in our life where specific assignments, callings, like we have abilities and gifts, we're starting to use those. We're starting to connect with people more. We're naturally starting to do these things. So I want to ask our listeners, what are the things that you naturally do when you're with somebody? It probably speaks to your identity.
So not look on my phone or
Yep.
do my hair. Or
Well, those things are very important if you have hair. If you have more than me, you still need to do your hair. But no, I don't think those things are anywhere near as important. But then your purpose is like, okay, so I'm a teacher. Now my purpose is, who am I meant to teach? Where am I meant to teach? What am I meant to teach?
Yeah.
That's my purpose.
In this season.
In this season. And for me, that's changed.
Right.
So I've had a period of time where I was a high school teacher. I'm still in an extended period of time where I'm an outdoor education instructor. I've had a period of time where I'm a relational intelligence coach, helping married couples, helping individuals, helping teams, connect and build really good culture. So the things that I do are an outworking of who I am. Yeah. So these are our three core questions, and we need answers to these three core questions. And I can't tell you how helpful it's been when I got an answer about my identity. When that became clearer for me, it's like there wasn't this, I need to try things and do things all of the time. And so if you're a listener out there and you're like, you just feel like you're flipping from one thing to the next thing all of the time, the question for you is, what's my value? Am I important? Do you really think that? And when you get to the point of like, yes, I have inherent value, then we go, great, so what's your identity? And when you get an answer to that, then you go, right, now let's launch into our purpose and use the fact that you believe you're important, that you're shaped to do this. Now let's go find the place for you to do it. And then what happens is people feel really good about themselves because they're being who they are to some people that really need it. And then if you were to take that away, they don't feel completely void and empty.
Right.
Because their identity is formed on who they are, not what they're getting to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a story recently where I got to meet, and well, I didn't actually get to meet this farmer, but I was sharing with a mate who's a farmer out west here in Queensland. He was saying, this old guy's just retired, he's selling his farm, and he's completely at a loss because he's been farming all of his life and now he doesn't get to farm. And so his purpose was informing his identity. So who is he? He's a farmer because he farms, but now he's not farming. So who is he?
Yeah.
And so now he has to go through the journey of reinterpreting and finding again who he is now for this season of life. And there's a part where we all get that.
Yeah.
Like that happens to all of us. But that's the question. You know, that he feels upset just keeps supporting again this point. We need to know our identity.
Right.
Otherwise, he wouldn't feel upset or concerned. He could just go, I'm a retiree and I feel comfortable with that. And I'm really happy with that. But yeah, so we need answers to those. But some of these answers are not good. Now, this is your area of expertise. So what do we call that in psychology when the answers that we have to these three core questions are helpful or unhelpful?
Well, when we have answers that have become really strong and cemented and then become foundational, that we call these core beliefs. And they can be healthy or unhealthy.
Right. Okay.
And you can tell by what they make you do and how they color how you see the world.
Right. So we're operating out of them.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, actually, that's a nice segue because one of my favorite things to share in this space when I work with coaches is this very famous proverb. I used to love reading wisdom stuff when I was younger, and this one stuck with me. It says this: above everything that you do, guard your heart, because out of your heart comes all of your life. And so that's why I call them the three core questions of the heart. Because if we guard what's in our heart, what goes into our heart, and we look after that well, then what comes out of our heart is going to be really helpful, happy, whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think what I'd love to do, Gretchen, is in our next episode, I just love to quiz you about core beliefs and see where that goes so that our listeners can understand what core beliefs are, how they work, and how we can change them from a psychology point of view. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Well, this is Chris and Gretchen, podcast at the Lighthouse. Thank you for being with us. And we look forward to our next opportunity to share. We'll see you soon. Hey, Chris from the Lighthouse. Thank you for listening. This podcast is produced by Lighthouse Leadership in conjunction with Story Films. We would love to help you and other people get this info, so please follow us on Spotify or your favourite podcast app and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You know how to do that. Thank you for helping us build communities of people with great connection led by healthy leaders.